Welcome to the MOOCs course Mechanical Unit Operations. The title of this particular lecture is Size Enlargement Equipment number 2. In the previous lecture we have seen different size enlargement methods. Under each method what type of equipments are available which are extensively used in the current industries, and then what are their capacity, advantages, etc. Those kind of things we have seen. And also we have seen equipment under tumbling granulator category, that is drum and disc granulators we have seen. We have also seen their relative merits and demerits, etc. Those details we have seen in the previous lecture of size enlargement equipment. This is the second lecture on the size enlargement equipment. Here in this particular lecture we will be discussing a few details about the mixer granulator and then spray drying, prilling, pressure compaction, etc. Under those categories what kind of equipment are available, what are their merits, on what applications they are more suitable, those kind of details we are going to see in this particular lecture. So let us start with mixer granulators in this lecture. In general they contain an agitator to mix particles and liquid to cause granulation. Whatever the binding liquid is there, that and then particles are taken in a kind of mixer and then agitation is caused, so that the mixing of the particles and then binding liquids will take place. Because of that one a kind of granulation will take place. It has several advantages, such as can process plastic and sticky materials which are in general little bit difficult in handling using the tumbling granulators, but we can conveniently handle this kind of sticky materials and then plastic materials using the mixer granulators. Also the spreading of viscous binders. In general the liquid, whatever the binders that we are using, they are not very viscous in general. If they are viscous, then the spreading is a kind of a problem. So that spreading of viscous binder is not at all a problem. In these mixer granulators they can conveniently easily, even the viscous binders can spread easily, so the granulation performance or degree of granulation can be better. And then the operating conditions are not very sensitive, or the performance is not very sensitive to the operating conditions, as we have seen, like in tumbling granulators the operating conditions are to be properly managed so that to have a kind of proper granulation, otherwise consolidation etc. may take place. Those kind of details we have seen in tumbling granulators, but however in this mixer granulators operating conditions are not very sensitive, so consolidation etc. those kind of processes may not be very severe using these mixer granulators. And then they produce granules of size less than 2 mm which are having high density. So high density granules of appropriate size up to 2 mm or less can be conveniently produced by these mixer granulators. Coming to the throughput, actually these mixer granulators are not good for high throughput in general. Their throughput is a kind of medium, moderate to low in general, but however there are a few high intensity mixing systems where you can even achieve a kind of high throughput as well, but in general they are not suitable for very large throughputs. Then the shape of the granules, that we have seen by using tumbling granulators, we get a very spherical granulators. That is what we have already seen and discussed. So but such high degree of spherical granules are not possible to get by using this kind of mixer granulators, right? So granules from mixers or mixer granulator may not be as spherical as those obtained by tumbling granulators. Then the granulation performance using this mixer granulator, or the granule size and then density of the granules, can be controlled by the amount of the binding liquid that is being provided along with the intensity and then time of mixing. These three parameters are going to determine the agglomerate granule size and its density. So these three parameters, the amount of the binding liquid, then the intensity of the mixing, and then the time of the mixing, is going to have a kind of important role on the granule size as well as the density of the granule that has been obtained after the size enlargement by using these mixer granulators. Now we see a few mixer granulators which are both low speed and then high speed are there. So let us start with low speed mixer granulators. They are in general used for both batch and continuous applications. That is, their designs are in general available for both batch operations as well as the continuous operations. In general, these low speed mixers have a horizontal troughs in which rotate central shafts with attached mixing blades of bar, rod or paddle etc. are being used actually. So we will be going to see a kind of schematic also in the next slide how they are going to operate. In general, we have a kind of a horizontal trough, right, which rotate with central shaft, and then these whatever these shaft is there, that is being attached with some kind of mixing blades or knives etc. are provided, so that the whatever the material is there, that is being pushed through forward as well as to the center, so that the both mixing and kneading kind of action can take efficiently. So that is the general principle of these low speed horizontal mixers. Essentially these are kind of twin rotor mixers, nothing but just twin rotor mixers. Then these vessels may be single or double trough design, so one can have either of the design, but mostly people have a kind of double trough design. Then rotating blades carried forward the material and then bring it to the center to achieve a kind of kneading and mixing action. As the blades or the shaft rotates, so it is having the blade, so as it rotates, so the material is carried forward from one direction to the other direction, as well as while carrying forward from one direction to the other direction, the material also moves through the center to the periphery like that also, so that the mixing action take place efficiently. However, because of their low throughput reasons, these kind of mixer granulators, especially low speed mixer granulators, are largely replaced by the tumbling granulators, especially in metallurgical and fertilizer industries. So wherever the metallurgical and fertilizer applications, whatever the previously used low speed mixer granulators are there, nowadays they are being replaced by a kind of tumbling granulators because of the throughput concerns, because you may not have a kind of high throughput using these mixer granulators. However, they are still used as a kind of pre-mixing step for blending very different raw materials. Let us say if you have a kind of mixing you need to do, and then mixing has to be done between two very different type of material, then the mixer granulators are found to be very efficient. So something like filter cake and then dry powder. One is the filter cake, it's a kind of cake pastry kind of thing, and then other one is a kind of a dry powder. These two are a kind of very different nature feed, and then if you wanted to mix them together, then this kind of mixer granulator are found to be kind of very efficient. Now we see a schematic of a typical low speed horizontal mixer granulator. So here we have a kind of shaft, this shaft, there are actually two rotors, 1 and 2 like this. So this shaft, whatever is there, onto this we have a kind of blades. So blades are something kind of these kind of blades etc. are provided, alright, something like this. So we can have a kind of, this is actually double trough design shown here. So these blades are like this. So material, when let us say this is the this side is the material is coming in, so whatever the material comes in, because it rotates, both of these are rotating, so then when rotates the blades they carry forward this material like this. They may take in this particular direction, something like this. So it takes forwards as well as it moves through the center, so that kind of efficient mixing can take place and then collected from the other end as a kind of product. This is the basic principle, very simple kind of principle that is available, but the problem with this kind of mixer granulator is the throughput is very less. Then high speed mixers, they are also possible both continuous and then batch mode. So let us start with the continuous shaft mixers. These high speed mixers can be continuous shaft mixers or they can be batch high speed mixers. We'll see both of them a few details. So continuous shaft mixers have blades or pins rotating at high speed on a central shaft. Both horizontal and vertical shaft designs are in general available within these continuous shaft mixers, both continuous as well as the batch shaft mixers, two categories, and within each category again we can have a kind of horizontal and vertical shaft designs are possible. So we are going to see some of them. Let us say Shugi mixer is a kind of one of the famous mixer used in industry, so that can have a kind of vertical configurations or vertical shaft design, and then when there are a kind of pins or peg mixers kind of things are there, they can be a kind of a horizontal shaft designs, right. So let us say high shear vertical shaft continuous granulator. If you see an example, it is a kind of a Shugi mixer that we are going to have here. So here let us say this is a kind of container here, right. So in this container whatever the material is there, that is being taken here. So this material may come continuously from here, something like that, and then they may be collected from the bottom as a kind of product. I mean, this is not a kind of a schematic, it's a kind of a cross section cut, the section view of a kind of this Shugi mixer is shown here. So in this, what we have a kind of vertical shaft, something like this. So then there is a motor connected to this rotates. When it rotates like this, so a kind of mixing takes place here. So whatever the solids you have and then binding liquid then that you have, they undergo a kind of very high shear. Why? Because very high shear, because here the rotations in general very high. So because of the high rotational speed, a kind of very high shear is generated, and because of that high shearing, high mixing takes place here in the case of continuous shaft vertical granulators. So that is going to have a kind of impact on the performance, final granulation degree. So these mixers operate in general, as I said, at high speed 200 to 3500 rpm. So the control is there. You can operate at low speed also, but in general they are operated at the upper end, so more than 2000 rpm or something like that. And then they produce granules between 0.5 to 1.5 mm within a few seconds of residence time. In general, the tumbling granulators also, or otherwise low speed mixer granulator that we have seen, the residence time is in general in minutes, 5 to 10 minutes or something like that. But because of the high shearing in these continuous shaft granulators, the mixing takes place within a few seconds. But however, you cannot have a kind of larger size particles because that high shearing, because of the high shearing, some amount of attrition may also take place. So that will not allow the particle to grow bigger and bigger or consolidation to take place. So that is the reason the particle size you maybe have only up to 0.5 to 1.5 mm only. Then its capacity is moderate, 50 tons per hour. Then typical plant capacities of lower shear peg mixers that we have not seen the schematic, so they are even smaller capacity, 10 to 20 tons per hour, whereas the vertical shaft continuous granulator that we have seen in the previous slide, so that has up to 50 tons per hour kind of capacity, whereas the other lower shear peg mixers are having only 10 to 20 tons per hour capacity. The applications we find this kind of continuous shaft high and low shear granulators, we find their applications in several industries where we produce detergents, agricultural chemicals, clays, ceramics, and then carbon blacks are processed. So these are the few applications that where we can find application of these high shear continuous shaft granulators. So now we see batch high shear mixers or batch high shear granulators. So here we see both the horizontal and then vertical configurations, right. So batch high shear mixer granulators are used extensively in pharmaceutical industries. In general, plow shaped mixers rotate on a horizontal shaft at 60 to 800 rpm. So it is schematically, if you see here, high shear mixer granulator, horizontal plow shear. So here we have a container on which it's a kind of batch mode. So we have a container where we can take the liquid, binding liquid, through two different sections. If you want to spray, you can take from here, otherwise you want to take the binding liquid through lance, so that comes here. right. So inside this equipment there is a kind of impeller, so that impeller rotates, right, because it's having a kind of rotational provision inside. So we are seeing only a kind of frontal view kind of thing, so that when it rotates, and then whatever the feed that you have taken along with the binding liquid, that undergoes a kind of a continuous mixing under high shear, okay. Because of that high shear mixing, the granulation takes place. So this here also the process seems to be very simple. Of course, this equipment we are not getting into the design concept. So there are separate high speed cutters or choppers rotate at much higher speed between 500 to 3500 rpm and are used to limit the maximum granule size. Because of high shearing, obviously you cannot expect to have a kind of a larger granule size. So especially if you do not want very large granule size, so then it is better to go for this kind of equipment. If you want to have a kind of a larger granule, if your requirement is okay to have a kind of granule size between 2 to 20 mm, such wider range, then it is better to go for a kind of tumbling granulators, okay. Granulation times of the order of 5 to 10 minutes are common in this kind of batch operations, which includes wet massing and granulation stages operating at low and high impeller speed respectively. Okay, this time whatever 5 to 10 minutes is there, that includes for all the operations like wetting of the feed material that has been taken by using the spray nozzles, by using the binders through the spray nozzles, etc., and then granulation, all those processes completes in 5 to 10 minutes. And of course there are several designs, both vertical and horizontal shafts are available. So the previous figure we have seen the kind of a horizontal plus shear mixer. Now we take a kind of vertical, bottom driven shear, okay, high shear mixer granulator, vertical bottom driven shear. So here the only thing that we have a kind of container through which to which the liquid is being added, and then there is air filter. Chopper is also there in order to control the size of the granule, and there is a discharge. So here what is that impeller is at the bottom, right, and then this rotates kind of in a vertical direction. So vertical, but as rotation, that rotation or the shearing whatever is being induced by the rotation, that is at the bottom and it is in the vertical direction. The similar kind of design one can have, the impeller one can have at the top, and then that is still kind of vertical shearing only, but the rotation, whatever the rotation that is driven at the top. So that way also it is possible. That is what, as mentioned previous slide, there are several designs are available. We have taken only 2 designs where high shear mixer granulator, both horizontal and then vertical driven shear we have seen. So like that one can, as per the requirement, one can choose these kind of designs or even modify the designs as per the requirements. Then fluidized bed and related granulators is the other type of granulators that we have seen. So we see some details about them now. Here in this kind of fluidized bed, the fluid bed granulators, the particles are set in motion by air rather than by using any kind of mechanical agitations. Till now, whether the tumbling granulators or the mechanical or the mixer granulator, the agitation is being caused because of the some kind of mechanical agitation, mechanical means, right. So the granulation is a kind of agitation, the agglomeration because of the agitative action. So then we call them granulator, and then those agitative action till now, whether it is tumbling bed or mixer granulators, so those have been caused because of using some kind of a mechanical means, right. Now in the fluid bed granulators, the particle motion whatever it is required, that has been done by using a kind of a dehumidified air or air mixed with nitrogen as per the application, something like that, okay. They have several applications which include like fertilizers. These are used in fertilizer industries, and then several types of industrial chemicals and number of industrial chemicals production. So there also we use these fluid bed granulators. agricultural chemicals production also we use fluid bed granulators for the size enlargement of agricultural chemicals. Likewise, pharmaceuticals also, if you wanted to do a kind of granulation of pharmaceuticals, then also these fluid bed granulators are in general used. And then also they are used for the coating purposes also, not only just for the size enlargement, or they not only just agglomeration or granulation, they are also used for a kind of a coating of a few fine particles. Further, these fluidized granulators produce either high porosity granules due to the agglomeration of powder feeds, and then high strength layered granules due to coating of seed particles, and then granules by liquid feeds. Right, high porosity granules you in general get because these particles are set in motion by the air. So whatever the liquid is, the spraying liquid is coming in, interacting with the particles. So we are going to see the schematic in the next slide anyway. So the particles mixing with the liquid, so whatever the interstitial spaces are there between the particles, that are being occupied by the binding liquid in general in tumbling granulators. So there you don't get porous granules in general, but here in this kind of fluid bed granulation, particles are set in motion by the air. So whatever the interstitial spaces is there, that is not being completely covered by the binding liquid, because these particles are in motion and they are in a kind of very random motion. You cannot define a kind of a particular motion, especially if the fluid bed is under kind of turbulent conditions. So because of that one, the particle size will also be less, or though enlargement will be taken place, but still the particle size would be less than 1.5 mm or something like that. So that is the reason, if you want to have a kind of high porosity granules, then it is better to go for a fluid bed granulator. If you wanted to have a low porosity or almost without any porous structure granules, if you want to produce by size enlargement, then better to go by tumbling granulators. Okay. Similarly, the strength, if you are using the fluid bed granulators, then after coating, if you are using it for the coating of the feed material, then the strength of the particles are also found to be strong enough, because within this process there is also a provision kind of partial drying kind of thing. In the next slide, we have a figure that represents a typical production size batch fluid bed granulator. So it is having air handling unit which dehumidifies and then heats the inlet air. Then heated fluidization air enters the processing zone through a distributor which also supports the particle bed. Then liquid binder is sprayed through an air atomizing nozzle located above, in or below the bed. All the possibilities are there. All three types of designs are available. Bag filters or cyclones are needed to remove dust from the exit air, and then other fluidization gases such as nitrogen are also used in place of or in combination with air to avoid any potential explosion hazards due to fine powders as per the requirement, if at all required. Why? Because sometimes some particles, if you are using air, so some particles explosive, and then there is a kind of heating is also involved, then a kind of reaction may take place with the oxygen present in the air, and then some cases explosion may take place. Under such conditions, it is better to go for the nitrogen, or fluidizing medium should be nitrogen, or nitrogen mixed with air or something like that, one has to see, so that to avoid these explosions. That depends on the nature of the chemicals that are being processed in fluid bed granulator for their size enlargement. It is not necessarily true for all the materials, it depends on some type of the fine powders. So the schematic, as already stated here, we have a kind of a dehumidifying section here. So actually this air handling unit entirely, what it does a kind of a dehumidification of the air and then heats the inlet air if it requires, and then that air comes through this processing section. Okay, so actually this entire section is a kind of processing section here. Of course, it is all single section only. Probably here we can have something like this. So this is the distributor here, right? This distributor also supports the bed of the particles, right? So the opening of the distributors, a distributing plate, let us say there is a distributor plate like this, so it may be having the perforated holes like this. It is a perforated, and then it will be having the holes like this, right? And then this perforation or the size of the holes depends on the size of the particles that you are handling. So they should be much smaller than the size of the particles, whatever the fine particles that we are using. Otherwise, that particles may come down here because through these holes, if the fluidizing air velocity or fluidizing medium velocity is not sufficient enough. So that is the reason it should be having the very small size opening, smaller than the fine particles which are going to handle. So the air comes in here, something like this, and then it whatever the particle bed is there here, so it causes a kind of lifting of the particles, because slowly when air comes in at certain stage, the whatever the drag that is there on the particle, that is balanced by the weight of the particle. So then after that further, if you increase the velocity, particles start getting into the fluidized condition. They start floating, that is fluidized condition they will prevail, and then particles will move up like this, right? So they will be spreaded. So inside, initially when the bed is there, the porosity or the void space between the particles is very small, voidage is small. So now when the air comes in, that lifts the particles gradually as the velocity of the air or the fluidizing medium increases, the particles are being lifted, so the space between the particles increases, so the voidage increases, right? And now here there is a kind of a nozzle, spray nozzle is there, so that sprays the liquid continuously here. So here it is shown at the top, it can be at the bottom, it can be inside also, it is possible. So when this liquid comes, then particles are being fluidized, so these are interacting interacting, that is the particles, fluidized particle, and then binding liquids are interacting, a kind of granulation takes place, the size enlargement takes place. Even the coating also does the similar way, right? Then what happens here, it is not necessary that all the particles will be agglomerating or all the particles being coated when you are trying to do this one. So some particles are still remains on finer size. They may not be coming into the proper contact with the spraying liquid or whatsoever may be the reason. Some particles may be without being affected by these binders, so they may just come out, they may be floating in this area, so this particular exhaust air filter area. So here what you do, whatever the particles are there, they will be taken to the cyclone separators or back filters, where these particles are separated before that air is being sent out, right? So those particles again will be taken back, and then continuous, this process may be taken kind of further as a kind of recycle. And then after the granulation process is over, whatever the dried particles are there, granulated dried particles are there, they will be collected through the product discharge region from here. Okay, so this is the typical straightforward similar operation, that is fluidized bed, whatever the fluidized bed that we have in general. If you take a bed of sand particles and then you allow the air to pass through it, so that to see the fluidization. So you might have seen in the kind of this fluid mechanics course or fluid particle mechanics course, this fluidization you might have studied. So exactly the same process, indeed exactly the same equipment, but here we have a kind of a provisional to spray the liquid also, so that the contact between this liquid and then fluidized particles takes place, and then agglomeration may take place as per the operating conditions, right? Degree of the agglomeration may be changing as per the operating conditions and all that, Okay. So now the effect of variables on fluid bed granulations will be seen in a tabular column. So let us say we have a different operating or material variable, then what is the effect of increasing variable? So let us say if you consider liquid feed as spray rate, then increase size and spread of granule size distribution, then increase granule density and strength, then increase chance of defluidation due to quenching. Then liquid droplet size, when you are spraying these liquids required for granulation, they form a kind of droplets. The size of the droplet depends on the opening of the nozzle opening of the sprayer or atomization that we use for the spraying, and then the rheology or especially viscosity of the liquid. Okay. So if you take higher viscosity liquid, in general it is possible that you may get the bigger droplet from the same size opening, nozzle opening, compared to a kind of if you compare with a kind of low viscous liquid. That is, if you take a low viscous liquid and then you take a high viscous liquid and then you pass them through a nozzle of same size, then high viscous liquid is going to form a kind of bigger droplet. So let us say liquid droplet size, then what will happen? Increase the size and spread of granule size distribution. Then gas velocity, increase attrition and elution rates in general. When you increase the gas velocity, that causes increase the attrition, elution rates also. So with the gas, like that is nothing but the fluidizing medium, air or nitrogen or mixture combination of these two when you use. So if you use higher velocity, the kind of attrition rubbing between the particles will take place. Okay, that is very important factor. Because of that one, granulation may not take place, rather granulation size reduction may take place. So that is the reason gas flow rate, the fluidizing medium flow rate should not be very high, because the aim is here is the kind of size enlargement, not the size reduction. Attrition causes a kind of size reduction. It also decreases coalescence for internal growth and no effect on coalescence for non-internal growth, and then cause increased granule consolidation and density as well. Bed height, if you increase granule density and strength as well, it will be increased. Bed temperature, if you increase, the granule density and strength both will decrease. If you increase the binder viscosity or the viscosity of the liquid, then that increase coalescence for internal growth, and there will not be effect on coalescence for non-internal growth, and then that will be decreasing the granule density. Then coming to the particle or granule size, if you increase it, then decrease chance of coalescence and then increase required gas velocity to maintain the fluidation. If the particle velocity is increases, so then you need to give the larger fluidation velocity so that the particle can be in a kind of fluid like condition, like fluidized conditions. So these are the effect of variables on fluid bed granulation. Let us say all these variables we have in the left column, that each column when it is increasing. In this table, these are shown in a kind of increasing order. In the left column, whatever the operating variables or material variables are there, if you increase them, what kind of effect you see, that is shown in the kind of right column of the table. Okay. Then centrifugal granulators is the next category. They are extensively used in pharmaceutical industry, and then each of these designs, they have a kind of horizontal disc which rotates at high speed, causing the feet to form a kind of rotating rope at the walls of the vessel because of the centrifugation action, centrifugal forces. So that schematic we see now anyway. And there is usually an allowance for drying air to enter around the edge of spinning disc. So within these centrifugal granulators, we can also have a kind of provision for the drying of the granules. They are in general have the applications in speronization of extruded pellets, then dry powder layering of granules or sugar spheres, and then coating of pellets or granules by liquid feed. Centrifugal granulators tend to give denser granules or powder layers than fluidized beds and more spherical granules than mixer granulators. Tumbling granulators are the best one to produce very spherical granules. After that, the best one is the kind of a centrifugal granulator if you wish to have a kind of spherical granules. That is, they are better than a mixer granulator if you are willing to have a kind of spherical granules, but not better than the tumbling granulators. Of course, the size range is also very large in the tumbling granulators, in general 2 to 20 mm, something like that. Further, operating costs are reasonable, but capital cost is generally high compared to other options. Now we have a schematic here for a kind of general centrifugal granulator. We have a stator cover here, something like this. Like probably this is up to this one only, but we have a kind of a separate section for the air also, because if you wanted to dry these granules within the centrifugal granulator, so then it is having a kind of a rotor also, vertical rotor, something like this, right. So here what we have a kind of bottom driven rotor, right. It can be top driven rotor also. Here to this is the main section actually, right. So to this section the powder is coming through powder feeding device and then joining this container here, right. And then there is also provision for the constant flow pump, so that the liquid, whatever the binder that you need to use for the size enlargement, that can come here. They are just a kind of a schematic representation only, not necessarily they may be coming at the wall of the container, they may be coming somewhere here, they may also come somewhere here, something like that. Okay, so when they are coming and this rotor is rotating in a kind of direction, in a specific direction, so mixing between these particles and then binding liquid will take place, right. So the rotational speed has to be controlled. If the rotation too high, whatever the particles are coming, they will be directly hitting onto the walls and then being centrifugated, or they may be rotating as a kind of a wall, a rope wall along the container wall, so that may also take place. Or if you have a design like that, where this material, the feed material as well as the binding liquid are coming through the container walls like this, so then it is better to have a kind of a high speed centrifugation rotation, so that particles are sticking to the wall, and then there along these walls only the liquid is coming, so then particles would be coming in contact with those liquid along the walls, and then kind of mixing takes place. And as mentioned, a kind of a particle rope is along the wall is forming, and then kind of agglomeration takes place, right. So then here we can also have a kind of provision, it is optional additional provision. So the blow air generator system is here, okay, shown here. So it is having the heat exchanger also, whatever the air that you take from the compressors, that will pass through the heat exchanger to get it heated out, right, because we are sending it to dry the granule, so it has to be heated up. So that heated air is sent to this slit and then entering to the regions where this drying, to the inside or the region, it is heating up the centrifugation device, so that whatever the granule material is there, that can be dried, right. And then after this complete granulation takes place, and then with proper sufficient drying, the product whatever is there, that is taken out from the product outlet. This is a general working principle of centrifugal granulators. Okay, one can have a kind of modified designs, and then changes or different designs are also possible. Fine. So we have taken only one particular way. So let us say here moisture sensor is also there. That is again the optional. If you wanted to control the amount of the moisture, you do not want to have more moisture inside the equipment, so then you can have this one, and then accordingly you can control the spraying of the solution, binding solution. Next, spray processes. In general, in spray processes, particle size is determined by the size of the droplets of liquid or the suspension which is being used, which is further controlled by suitable spray nozzle. Depending on the spray nozzle, the size of the droplet will be there, and then depending on the size of the droplet, particle size or the granule size will be determined. How big a granule are you going to get? For a given nozzle, the droplet size will be a function of both flow rate and then liquid properties, especially viscosity. As I mentioned, viscous liquids tend to form larger drops yielding large aggregates or the bigger size granules. Then aggregates of dried material are held together as a result of deposition of small amounts of solute on the surface of particles. It's a kind of simple drying process. Next is the prilling. It is also similar to spraying process. Prilling, relatively larger droplets are introduced into the top of a tall narrow tower and allowed to fall against an upward flow of air, because of which somewhat larger droplets yielding larger aggregates will take place. Then the last one is the pressure compaction method. In order to do the size enlargement, it is very much used in pharmaceutical industries. If a material is subjected to very high compaction forces, it may be formed into sheets or tablets. In tableting machines used for producing pills of pharmaceuticals, the powder is compressed into dyes either with or without the addition of a binder as per the requirement of the active ingredient of the fine powder that we have taken. Powder compaction may also be achieved in roll presses, including briquetting, in which compression takes place between two rollers rotating at the same speed. So since they are rotating at the same speed, there will not be any kind of shearing action. There will be only compressive pressure forces acting, and there will not be any shearing action because both of them are rotating at the same speed. In pellet mills, a moist feed is forced through die holes where the resistant force is attributable to the friction between the powder and the walls of the dies. So typically pressure compression, if you see, by using the roll presses, so these are the two rolls, this is one roll and then this is the other roll. The feed material, either the solids, pure dry solids, dry fine powders, are mixed with a kind of binders. They are individually or a kind of mixed with binders, which as per the requirement of the application they comes between these two, and then these are rotating in the same direction. These rolls are rotating in the same direction and then same rotational speed, so that there will not be any friction. So then material whatever that comes in between these two, there is a small gap. The gap is of suitable size, depends on the what size of sheets or what size of tablets you want to get out as a product. So depending on that one, the size between these rolls is controlled. So the material that comes in here, that will be compressed and then as a kind of tablet that will be coming out from here. Right now the pressure forces, if you see, the pressure is going to be very much high at the center or the point at which they are contacting, or the lines. Let us say this is the center axis of the two rolls, right? So on that point, in general, you may be having the high pressure at the contact point here, and then a kind of intermediate pressure would be there somewhere here when the material is first coming and interacting with the kind of this rolls, right? And that here, from here to this side, if towards the center when it comes, the material gradually experiences the gradually increasing pressure. The pressure outside is a kind of normal pressure, whatever the feeding pressure is there. So moment here that come the pressure, it is intermediate pressure region, right? So here this is our intermediate pressure region will be there. From here, moment they start interacting with the rolls, the high pressure region starts. So that is the high pressure region is this one, and then it is maximum at the center. Okay, at the point of the center lines, whichever the joining the center lines, two center lines are there, at that point it is going to be max. And then again, as the material goes down towards the product section, the pressure is again high pressure region, the pressure decreases when it comes down here. So then what happens, as a product the pressure gradually decreases here, right? And then these regions are here as a kind of a dotted line shown. So this region between whatever section is there, this region, not inside the rolls but here when the material is coming. So this region is a kind of a intermediate pressure region, and this region a kind of a high pressure region. And then at the center, at this point, right at this point, the pressure is very high, and then again when it comes down as a product, the pressure gradually decreases, but it will not be same as a kind of intermediate pressure region when it is entering the material. So when it comes in as a feed, it experiences more pressure, though it is intermediate region. So while it is going out in the similar region, the pressure is not going to be so high, smaller pressure it is experiences. So this is about the pressure regions, the regions of compression in roll pressures, which are used for the tableting of making the sheets out of the fine feed material or fine powder, either individual powder or kind of mixed with some kind of binding liquid. So this is about size enlargement equipment. So in the two lectures we have seen different size enlargement methods and then types of equipment under each size enlargement method, that is like agitative granulation or pressure compaction or sintering, whatever. So under each categories different types of equipment we have listed out, and then we have also seen the advantage disadvantage of this equipment. However, coming to the equipment design principles we have not seen because of the time factor. So primarily we have seen the working principles or the working methodology of some of the existing designs, and then their merits, demerits, applications, etc. Those kind of things we have seen under each category of size enlargement equipment. However, if anybody wanted to see more details about the design of these kind of size enlargement equipment, so they are suggested to refer this book, Perry's Chemical Engineer's Handbook, 8th edition by Green and Perry. Indeed, the entire lecture has been prepared from this reference book. More details on design, etc., those kind of things can be found out from this reference book. Then unit operations of particulate solids, theory and practice by Ortega Rivas. Also you can find some design aspects about some of these size enlargement equipment. Other reference books are standard references. We have Carlson and Richardson's Chemical Engineering, 2nd volume by Richardson and Harker. Then Unit Operations of Chemical Engineering by McCabe, Smith and Harriet. Then Transport Processes and Unit Operations by John Coplis. And finally Introduction to Chemical Engineering by Badger and Manchuru. Thank you.